Two formation. Let's change now. We go racing for the first time this season. 3 hours of GT action. It's go.
It's very tight as they come down. Group of cars coming in. This has all got trouble written all over it. This is G3 cars.
Drop downhill there, head towards the Aqua Minerale. Imola, of course. There's another one off through the gravel. As wide as possible as they drop downhill, putting that from the inside line. Yes, he did. Through he goes.
Good evening everybody then, and welcome back to another Apex Online Racing stream here for round 2 of Season XI, or Season 11 depending on how you are numerically inclined. And after a cracking opening round last time out at Spa, it was Jamie Nuttall that took the victory there, but he did come under some pressure, and we'll have to see how it all fares today as they take to Watkins Glen for the next round of action. But joining me in the comms box, as always, is my good friend Tim. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm very good, John. Thank you for having me back. It's another glorious Tuesday evening. There's a little bit of a chill in the air, although that can't be said for here at Watkins Glen. It is absolutely roasting, 35 degrees out on the track, 28 degrees ambient. So be interesting to see how people's tyres hold up towards the end of their stints. And yeah, as you said, Jamie Nuttall last race sort of ran away with it, basically led nearly every single lap, but towards the end of the race, in the post-race interview, did let us know that he was struggling a little bit. But needless to say, he obviously came on pole, followed by Jordan Watson, who came second, and then Tim Peachman, who came in third. So it'll be interesting to see how they all get on today in the free practice server. Jamie Nuttall once again dominating that pole position, and then Peachman down in 6th. So it'll be interesting to see how everyone gets on. It doesn't look like it's completely dominated by Hondas here in the practice server, but we'll have to see what happens in the actual qualifying session when everyone really pulls out the big guns and absolutely goes for it.
Yeah, without a doubt. You know, last time, as we're just moving in to qualify now. But yeah, last time, you know, we saw Jamie Nuttall kind of fly away out the front of the field, but then, you know, Watson gave him a little bit of a tough time in that second stint, and Watkins Glen absolutely tears apart your tyres. So it'll be really interesting to see how everyone deals with all of that today. So I shall just switch over screens to get us looking a bit more nicely at our server. As Jamie Nuttall won last time out, and he's started the practice session in fine form, and also is leading everyone away out the front of the field for the first sets of laps. So I have to see what the number 114 car can do. But Tier 1 yesterday gave us some interesting insight into maybe what we can expect for these guys this evening. We saw the Honda being very, very quick. We saw the Porsche also being particularly handy around here as well. But in that long-running pace, it ended up being the Ferrari that ended up coming out on top. And we've got some quick drivers in the Ferraris and some other cars as well that might manage those tyres a bit better. So it's definitely going to be an interesting one. And by no means, I think, is qualifying going to tell the whole story of what we might be in store for.
No, definitely not. It was very interesting to see actually the Mercedes AMG coming to life towards the end of the race yesterday. It really seemed to have some great pace, not just in Sector 1, but actually continuing on through Sector 2 and 3. And we did see the Hondas really starting to fall off through Sector 2 and 3 yesterday towards the end of the race. The tyres were a lot more worn. But we'll have to wait and see. Jamie Nuttall just about to start our first flying lap now. So this is going to be the man putting down the benchmark to begin with. Racing for Cracked Racing.
And certainly gave us a performance that kind of lived up to that name last time, didn't he? He was absolutely insanely quick in qualifying. His pole position lap really would have put him in good standing in Tier 1. It was a fantastic effort. Obviously, the Honda was very racy around there, but that takes away nothing from Jamie Nuttall's lap. So it'd be really interesting to see how he gets on today as everyone starts to make their way through and into this very tricky and fast chicane, and it's a part of the track that's caught out quite a few of the drivers in Tier 1, even the very tip-top best. You really have to be comfortable with your car and be so committed through those corners to really extract everything from the lap. It's very easy to get track limit warnings if you cut a little bit too much, but I think if anything the bigger fear factor of it is how those curbs can really unsettle the car and end up seeing you spear off into the wall on either the right or the left hand side, depending on which one of those curves gives you trouble. So Watkins Glen is absolutely relentless in terms of the challenge that it gives to these drivers, and in a weird way, Spa is a much longer lap at Spa, and it has its own set of unique challenges, but in terms of a driving experience for these guys in the cockpit and trying to deal with all of the different tricks and challenges it presents, Watkins Glen, it's a bit of I think a reasonable follow-up to what we had at Spa, because they're going through exactly the same sort of thing. So we've got Jamie Nuttall rounding out the lap, seeing what benchmark he can set down. So it's a 43.4 first time around, and he goes half a second clear of anybody else. Have to see what other drivers can do as they complete some of their laps and fill out the timing board. But that Honda of the 114 car still looking pretty good at the moment. It's got the Aston Martin of Neuwirth has put himself into provisional P2, 4 tenths behind, but definitely looking like a solid effort from the Honda, as the Mercedes of Florian, number 4 car, who had a rather eventful opening round at Spa, maybe we'll be looking to try to get a better result here at Watkins Glen, but certainly was looking feisty in practice, and putting that Mercedes into what was provisional P2 as another Mercedes and a newcomer for Tier 2. The 540 car of Morgan McCall, 5,000 clear of Jamie Nuttall. What a lap there from the Mercedes.
That's a really good little effort, that is, isn't it? Really well done. Also, I think his only racing experience, McCall, is he has done our most recent endurance race, which was at Paul Ricard on Saturday. So apart from that, and that is his first race with Apex Online Racing, and he was not able to attend our meeting at Spa last week. So be interested to see how it goes on. This is another newcomer to Apex Online Racing, and we've seen an amazing influx of them this season, really shaking everything up all across the tiers, all the way from 1 to 10, new people everywhere. It's certainly put a fresh challenge into everyone's sort of pockets now. There's no way of knowing what you're up against with all these new guys coming in. And obviously it's also forced a lot of the Tier 1 drivers. Some of them have been pushed down into Tier 2. And obviously we've seen a good influx of people from the lower tiers as well, people improving. Maybe starting to think the winter's coming. Sim racing always seems to have a massive boom once it gets a little bit colder. So should be good. I think this race is going to be interesting. I say, and that Mercedes. Oh, and there we go. There's 2 of them on the holding up the front rows now.
Yeah, Florian absolutely putting a lovely lap together there. I think he gained a lot of time in the first sector, was a little bit lackluster in the middle, but just pulled out enough of a PB in the final sector to see that one through to the end. But the Mercedes looking very, very fast in this opening 7 minutes of qualifying. And Jamie Nuttall, he was on a pretty good lap not too long ago. He's going purple again this time around, so he's trying to immediately get a response in to that absolutely brilliant lap from our current provisional pole sitter of Florian Duakop. And Jamie Nuttall trying to see then if he can make it 2 for 2. Make his way through turn 8 now. Tricky corner, very deceptive with the undulation around here. You can usually around Watkins Glen, particularly into turn 7, you can brake so late going into that part of the circuit because you have so much of the steep gradient you're pushing into. It really gives you a lot of compression in the car and you can absolutely chuck it in there. But turn 8, not quite so much. But Jamie Nuttall continuing to remain purple, flirting with the edges of the wall out of the exit turn 11 then. But coming to the line then, Jamie Nuttall tries to stagger, and he does by 5 thousandths of a second. And that's the margin that we saw earlier on. So absolutely topping and turving all of the time here. But Jamie Nuttall then the 114 Honda returning to provisional pole. What a lap.
Florian is 0.1 up at the moment, so there is a possibility that he might come back. He is currently, well, this is the final turn. He's coming through now. He's still saying 0.1 up, so may see a change.
It is looking pretty good, isn't it? The Unicorns of Love, Mercedes seeing what he can do, and it is good enough. He maintains exactly a 10th over Jamie Nuttall then, or a 10th up on his improvement, and then ends up being 95 thousandths of a second clear of the 114 car, and that's number 4 Mercedes. May have had a torrid time at the opener at Spa, but trying to clearly lay down a different sort of mark going into today's race.
Yeah, very. It was a bit of a sharp ending to his race, shall we say, at the top of Eau Rouge. It was yeah, it came to a very abrupt end. But yeah, obviously out here trying to show that he is a dominant force to be reckoned with. So great liveries out here again this evening. I think it was one of the Audis earlier when I was seeing, where it's yellow down one side and sort of red down the other. And I know they took part in the Endurance Championship. I should remember, but you know what? My brain just is not working.
Yeah, can't quite recall who that may have been. As
that's SPQ Racing Team. One of their cars, so it's red and yellow and with a black front end on one of the Audis. That's car number 6.
Car number 6, where have we got that? So that is Daniele Giacomelli then, who's currently sitting in the pit. I'm not sure whether that's my camera view or not. I can see a nice black and red livery. I can't see any bits of yellow unless it's on the. I think it's on the other side.
It's on the other side.
So we've got one of those split liveries, almost a little bit inspired by. I think it was a 1 year of BAR Honda in Formula 1 where they had something like American colours down one side and British down the other. But yeah, these nice sort of 50-50 split liveries coming a little bit more common now. But yeah, very nicely done on that number 6 car, and also someone that's maybe notable to have a look out for a different reason, maybe a little bit of insight in the chat. I was saying somebody that Pasquale De Lucia in this 33 Ferrari, maybe a bit of a dark horse, currently sitting in P9 at the moment, second fastest Ferrari after Mellis, but we saw the pace in the race that surged through with these Ferraris, just being able to hold on to its tyres in the latter stages, and George Boothby managing, as always, to extract absolutely everything from that car. So we'll have to see how Pasquale gets on as well as our other Ferrari drivers. I was just having a look on the field. Do we have Watson? We do. He's all the way down in 33rd position, so I don't think he's put together a valid lap time yet. He's continuing to improve on this lap, but I imagine that 147 car will shoot up the order if he does manage to bring this one to a close, because obviously P2 last time out of Spa almost gave Jamie Nuttall a little bit of a headache in the final stages. But yeah, that Ferrari will be wanting to try to get a lap under his belt before the end, although someone else who's going very, very quickly again is Jamie Nuttall. He's 3 tenths up on his previous lap time. Florian also finding a little bit of time in Sector 1 at the moment, but this looks like it could be an absolute powerhouse of a lap from the 114 Honda coming into the final turn now. Lost a little bit on the exit of turn 10. but he's got good drive out the final corner. Jamie Nuttall trying to see if he can make it 2 for 2 pole positions. I think it'll be just about enough, and it is 75 thousandths of a second to head up to the top of the timesheets for the time being. Still 4 minutes left on the clock, and his current main rival Florian on a lap of his own, although a little bit even Stevens with his previous best for the time being, though did start to gain a little bit on the entry to turn 8.
Oh,
he may have lost some there.
Mellis taking away 3rd place in that Ferrari number 15.
Oh, very
Brilliant
good lap from him. And gaining as well, actually, on his previous lap as well. He's found a 10th in this opening part of the lap. So, yeah, that Ferrari showing some good pace, as is the other Mercedes that's within that top 5. McCall was at the top of the timesheets at one point. The 540 car has found a 10th of a second. That might redisplace Mellis back down the order and trying to make it a Mercedes 2-3. Although I think he's lost a little bit of time through that final corner, so I'm not sure if it's going to be an improvement. As he hits the time and beat, it is just enough to sneak ahead. So Morgan McCall does jump up into P3. But Florian, the other Mercedes, going very quickly as well.
Yeah, another, he's already 0.1 up, just coming towards the end of Sector 2 into the bus stop. Obviously, a couple of different drivers obviously stream, and I was having a little bit of a look around, trying to do a little bit of research into it. And obviously the very well-known smiling man is Jardier yesterday, saying about that pretty much every time going through the bus stop in the Ferrari, it was a flip of a coin whether he'd make it out the other side or not. I think he lost it once, had a bit of a slide and managed to hold it together, but there was other drivers as well. It's such a fast bit of the circuit, and you have to fully commit, otherwise you lose so much time. And it's a great place for people to be able to make an overtake. If they're in the slipstream, they've caught up with you on that back straight, they can get on the brakes that little bit later, try and get up the inside, and if you can't clip your apex, you're in serious trouble through there. So you really have to, you know, commit and stay as fast as possible all the way to the end. Yeah, just noticing actually both Mercedes are up on their times at the moment. So we could see an improvement. Oh, no, I say that, and they immediately go back to a stalemate with their previous laps, both Florian and Morgan.
Yeah, not sure if he's going to be able to gain enough in that final corner, but it did look like he had more time. I also saw him going a little bit wide on the entry to Chute corner at turn 6. And Florian, oh, it was an improvement, but just not quite enough. Only 38 thousandths of a second away from that provisional pole time. He will, I think this will be his final attempt. I don't think he quite crossed the line. Might have been quite close. I didn't quite see what the time was left on the session, but if he does get one extra lap after this, it's going to be mighty tight with the clock. He won't be able to really back off from one lap to the other, but I definitely think that Mercedes has got a little bit of extra time. He was very quick through the opening half of the lap, but just started to lose it in the final sector. But yeah, going back to those... Oh, that's a big moment for Florian, and that may be all done and dusted. We were saying about that series of curves, I was actually just about to say that the Mercedes seemed to be handling that part of the circuit a little bit nicer than cars like the Ferrari, and I say that number 4 gets absolutely clouted over the end part of the chicane. You think maybe all of the complexity and the challenge of that corner is in the opening phase. You have to respect the second part of that corner as well, because it can be just as deadly. And when these guys are running, quite often they might run a qualifying setup and a race setup. They quite often have slightly stiffer suspension, maybe running a little bit lower to the ground, stuff like that. So they might have a car that's more well adapted to consistently deal with that chicane during the race, but in qualifying you really are absolutely playing with the limits. And that number 4 car has got 15 seconds left on the clock. Oh, it's going to be so close for the line. Looking at the time, this really may be a little bit of a Jensen Button Brawn trying to cross the line to start his lap at the very last second. I'm not sure he's quite going to be there. I think it's just going to go... Yeah, that's the end of the session, so Florian won't be able to get another lap in. And that mistake through the chicane has not only cost him a chance at pole position on that previous lap, but cost him a chance at getting in a follow-up as well. So be no higher than P2 for the Unicorns of Love Mercedes.
Oh, just saw that Kudeman, nut car number 12, was just... He was, well, 0.1 up just for a moment or two, so we may see a slight improvement from Kudeman, and he is not far off the back of McCall, so McCall might lose that 3rd place. Oh no, Oh, he's abandoned the lap before the line. So, yeah, he's obviously decided that is not going to be a winner. I'm trying to see if there's anyone else on any kind of improvements further down the grid.
Saw Jack Young flicking about just into the final corner, but I think he's maybe lost it on the exit. He may get a little bit of slipstream from up ahead. Oh, he does improve by the smallest of margins, but it's not quite enough to shift position. I think our current poleman, and likely to be poleman, Jamie Nuttall, is still following through on the lap, but doesn't seem to have found any time, so I'm not sure if he's going to find any improvements on that one. We've also got Salonen further down the order as he keeps on flicking up on personal best, but I think in terms of pole position, it might be all done and dusted for the 114 car for Jamie Nuttall to make it 2 for 2. He did gain a tiniest fraction of time out of that final corner, trying to see if he gets a slipstream off the Mercedes, and it's not quite an improvement by 0.04 of a second. Jamie Nuttall's previous time then does give him pole position, but crucially, the 114 Honda for Cracked Racing then does take his second pole position of the season and makes it 2 races in a row. What a qualifying session, and what tight margins we have at the very pointy end of the grid.
I mean, seeing how much that swapped around, I think it was because it was at Spa, wasn't it, that Nuttall set his pole lap time pretty early on in the qualifying session, and then he just remained there. People got close, but no one really dethroned him. But to see that kind of chopping and changing, and yeah, as you can see, it's 0.038 of a second between them. That is nothing. That is absolutely nothing between them on lap times. Again, as we said, it's going to be depending on how people can get on during the race. We saw the Honda here very dominant through Sector 1, which is a really good place for overtakes. And if you can outrun your opponents on that back straight, massive advantage to you. But the Mercedes seemed to come into its own later in the race yesterday. Same with the Ferrari. Unsure on how the McLaren is going to perform this evening. Haven't got much knowledge on the McLaren round here, but I imagine they are pretty skittish over bumps. Oh, penalties rolling in from last week's race.
Yeah, that's. I was wondering if we might see something for Florian. It was quite an extreme, as we said earlier, quite an extreme end to his race, and a very unusual incident as well. And unfortunately, that may hurt his hopes for challenging for the race win, because Jamie Nuttall certainly doesn't need a second invitation to try to run away with another victory. But whilst that may take Florian slightly out of contention, Morgan McCall could still potentially strike, because as we say, the Mercedes pace was strong in the longer distance. Maybe not as good over one lap, but that could still come good, and Morgan was clearly showing some strong pace during that qualifying session. So I have to see what he can do. We'll see if any more penalties roll in. But Jamie Nuttall did make it 2 pole positions in a row then, and sits that 114 car on the front step of the grid. And then Florian lining up P2, but unfortunately with that penalty, maybe in a little bit of a tricky scenario to challenge for the win. And we've got Morgan McCall sitting in P3 in that 540 Mercedes. I don't know if we're going to get a better camera view. I don't think we are. I think I might stop scrolling through the cars camera by camera, because I think we're just bouncing left to right. But Andras Kuderman, as we said, in the next Honda, the number 12 car, will start in P4. Alessio Mellis, the number 15, starting in P5. We saw the Ferrari come good yesterday, so I have to see whether or not the Italian can bring that far out to the front. And crucially, just trying to see, Jordan Watson all the way down in 24th position. So the man that was putting Jamie Nuttall under pressure last time out, he is well out of position. So I have to see if he can surge his way through the order potentially. Tim Peachman in that McLaren, good strong pace at Spa, but as you rightly say, Tim, similar characteristics to the Ferrari. Maybe doesn't deal with those curbs quite as nice. Then we've got Krzysztof Makowski in the BMW. We saw him soar through the order last time at Spa, starting in a much more competitive position this time out. And the BMW M4 may be a car to take care of its tyres a little bit better, so keep an eye on him as well. And Jack Young in the next BMW starts in P8 with Matti Laukkonen in P9. Nicholas Hirsch rounding out the top 10 in that 303 McLaren. We have Dominic Koroshavin, the first of our excuse me, the second of our Aston Martins after Laukkanen starting in P11. Thomas Jack in the number 13 car will start P12. Daniele Giacomelli in that split livery car we were highlighting earlier on, number 6, will start in P13. Matt York will be in P14 in that number 65 Aston Martin, very recognisable livery that I'm sure will pop up on stream from time to time there. Pasquale De Lucia, our potential dark horse, maybe not starting quite as high up the grid as he would have liked, but it is a long race distance, 60 minutes to make something work. Then we've got Wojtek Neuwirth starting in P16 with Kieran Patterson in P17 just behind Christian Deploy in P18 with Antti Salonen and Mr. Jones rounding out the top 20. Then we move over to Jay Fang and Jan Climbs to start the 11th row of the grid. Volkan Ajtacek will start in 23rd place with Jordan Watson starting down in 24th. So, yeah, really interesting to keep an eye on how he gets on, because that's not where we would have expected him to be whatsoever. Soldatov starting in 25th. Previous fan favourite Van Meerveld, although fans of Vince may be slightly being overwhelmed by the Jamie Nuttall followers from last week, but still good support for the number 29 car. Astruc down in 27th with Lucas Roda down in 28th as well. I think he had a very strong outing, if I remember correctly. Yeah, finished in 5th position in the end at Spa, so further down the order than we would have perhaps expected for the 55. Then Pitchik and Colagrosso will round out the top 30. Steinhauser starting 31st. Jukka Terminen in that Lexus in 32nd. And then another car out of position. The number 1 Audi finished P4 last time out, all the way out the back of the grid. So we could have a seriously interesting race on our hands, not just with our drivers at the front of the field, but with those who are out of position that may start to make their way through the order.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I do apologise about that. My voice suddenly didn't work. That's going to be the thing, is especially through Sector 1, Lap 1 and 2, it's going to be very, very busy. It's a very dangerous bit of the circuit when everyone is all completely bunched up. You've got cars that can be very dominant there, that are sort of mid-pack, that we may see charging forwards, and then obviously towards the end of the lap, cars that were really dominant in Sector 1 usually slacken off a bit through Sector 2 and 3, so the rest of the pack gets a chance to catch up and they bunch up again. So it's going to be a few laps until these guys are sort of in clear running. Nuttall's going to be hoping to really get away, and it might be a case of Florian and McCall, and also Kuderman as well. To be fair, that top 5 they could almost do with not fighting too hard and just trying to stretch their legs, get away a little bit, because if they can't get away and stay away, they're going to be in trouble, because there's so many cars on the circuit today. So fingers crossed it all goes well for everyone, and it was reasonably clean last night, so hopefully the Tier 2 boys, who are historically cleaner, can keep it all together as well. We won't have too many incidents this time round.
Yeah, fingers crossed. It's. I was just thinking, you know, in terms of Florian with that penalty, because I think, unless I could be wrong here, but I do believe that may apply at his pit stop, because he's got that penalty prior to when he's serving his pit stop. Obviously, we're at the very only on the formation lap at the moment. That applies to his pit stop, and that, from his perspective, as a very interesting case, because do you deliberately pit early and try to get yourself out of trouble, and then just putting laps in kind of cleaner air, but obviously that puts a lot more pressure on your tyres in terms of wear in the latter half of the race. So that's a strategy, but you know, it maybe tries to go longer and see if he can get cleaner. So he has to really try to think about how he plays this one out. But I imagine that off the line, those two Mercedes are going to give Jamie Nuttall a bit of a headache, because those two cars, very quick in a straight line, very quick under acceleration. Although the Honda has shown to have very good straight line speed and very good traction out corners and things recently, those Mercedes are going to be rapid off the line. But everyone now rounding their way through the final corner for 60 minutes of action here at Watkins Glen for the second round. Jamie Nuttall takes his second pole position of the season and will lead the grid away for the second time. And that is green lights away, and Jamie Nuttall will see it's a pretty even start between a pair of them. But I think Florian maybe a slight jump towards turn one. I don't know if he can do anything around the outside. McCall trying to see if he can get on the inside, but it's Florian trying to get around the outside. Jamie Nuttall in the number 4 car, and the side-by-side still on the run up through turns 2 and 3. The Mercedes will have the legs on the Honda up the hill, trying to see if he can get involved in this. Is Morgan McCall as he's in the slipstream of the Honda, and this could be very, very prevalent depending on how those penalties play out. The Mercedes trying to swarm the Honda now. Florian and Morgan trying to make it 3 wide towards the chicane. Morgan McCall backs out. Florian, though, does slot back into P2 position, and Jamie Nuttall does maintain the advantage as a drive-through I saw for someone else further down the order. And I think we've got chaos further down at the chicane. I think that's DeLucia that's gone around. What has happened in the background, I'm not entirely sure, but all the chaos seems to have kicked off at the chicane, but everyone else seems to have made it through fairly cleanly.
I think Steinhauser picked up a drive-through. I'm just going back to keep an eye on what happens to car number 33 going into the bus stop. Yeah, you're right, that is DeLucia in the black Ferrari. Oh, he just outbrakes himself and clips the back of what looked like car number 6. Yeah, just caught the back of Audi number 6, so just those 2 cars involved. Very lucky there. 100% sort of just outbraked himself. Did actually try and go evasive and dipped to the left and just caught the back of the Audi, so he'd be very disappointed in that. And he has returned to the pits. He has teleported back to the pits, and so has
Jack O'Malley, I think. Unfortunately, that nice livery car has also gone back to the pits, so yeah, chaos in the opening part of the lap, but Jamie Nuttall did manage to hold his lead. Then Florian and Morgan did go side by side towards Hill, but it was the Unicorns of Love car that came out on top in all of that. But we have so much battling, and that's Peachman now trying to look towards the inside of Kuderman, but the McLaren not quite fast enough in a straight line to do anything about it. But I think maybe a little bit of side by side action further down. Watson trying to make his way up the order, down the inside in towards turn 1, up into P18 already is the 147 car, trying to bounce back after a torrid qualifying for him, and that's allowed Salonen to now come under some pressure from Jay Fang in the Aston Martin. And see side-by-side Roda and one of the other cars in the background as well. Soldatov all jostling for position. Lipke trying to find a way through as well as they head up on a drag race further up towards the bus stop chicane once more. I think Matt York making an overtake as well. Roda losing out to one of the Audis. Soldatov trying to switch back 3 wide. Oh, and there's contact on the exit bus stop. Lipke involved in that as well. And several cars taken out in the instant. And Vince van Meerveld runs away from the group as a Struch. And I think that was a couple of other cars that have made their way through. But Soldatov taken out in all of that as well. And major calamities at the back of the grid. And that tricky chicane strikes once again.
Yeah, just jumping on now. So the on board with Road, car number 55. Tried to go too wide in, and where was the actual incident? Okay, actually it was number 55. That was a really unfortunate incident. Basically went deep into that final left-hander coming out of the bus stop, bounced over the curb, rejoined into the side of cars. The car very unsettled and just bowling balled through the cars that were still on the circuit. So I think we're probably going to see some post-race penalties coming around for that one. Yeah, bit of a miscalculation, but again, trying to go too wide through the bus stop, it just means you can't go on your main line. And as I said earlier on before the race, if you're not on the racing line, it's very difficult to keep everything in check. Amazingly, apart from the 2 guys that returned to the pit at the very beginning, we haven't actually lost any other races from the circuit completely. Cars number 911 and 47 going very slowly though.
Oh, it's a huge impact! Sorry to cut you off. Neuwirth flying into the wall there at the top of turn 2. See if we can catch that. That was a huge impact. Oh, I've tapped onto the wrong screen. This is terrible news. Don't know if I'm going to be able to pick that one up in time. He was side by side with Thomas Jack, I think, coming up the hill. We will just about manage to catch it. The Aston Martin then going up side by side with the McLaren. And then what happens as they get further up, a little bit of contact and absolutely sent into the barrier. Then a huge impact for the Aston Martin. And that really is going to be a little bit of a done deal for Neuwirth's race. That was a monumental bit of contact at such a fast point on the circuit as well, and very damaging. As meanwhile, whilst having a look at all of that, Morgan McCall has managed to get in front of Florian Duacomp. Neuwirth has retired to the pits, but that is important for this race lead battle because McCall has managed to dispatch of the number 4 car that has that 20-second penalty and sets his sights off into trying to see if he can dig into Jamie Nuttall's current lead, and he is moving very, very quickly at the moment. Is Morgan McCall. This could be a new fastest lap of the race as they head towards the line. Be interested to see. It's the current fastest is towards number 12 Honda, and it does go to McCall, a 43.9, half a second faster than our race leader, and I think we may have a duel for this win very much on our hands in the upcoming laps.
Absolutely fantastic drive so far from McCall. As he managed to get past that other Mercedes with a 20-second penalty. Yeah, just getting that done this early in the race is going to be a major breakthrough for him. Just having a look now, I think kind of a
Sorry to cut you off, he's going for it around the outside of the bus stop chicane. Jamie Nuttall then for the first time in 2 races having to be forced to defend really, and McCall putting all sorts of pressure on our current race leader and really is hounding the back of that Honda. I think there's some swapping of positions also further down the order. Nicholas Hertz in that Visceral Esports McLaren. He's also got Dominic Koroshavin and one of the BMWs battling as Matt Yule trying to go around the outside of Lauken, and that'd be a brilliant move if he can make it stick. It's going to be a tricky one to try to pull off. I think the Aston of Laukenen is going to hold the advantage for the time being. We've got battles happening left, right and centre, as is McCall pressuring again. Yeah, down in towards turn 8, heel corner down the inside and trying to go into the lead for the first time, and it's not Jamie Nuttall that leads, it's a 5-0 of the Mercedes car that storms it to the front of the pack, starting in P3, and Morgan McCall then, after just 7 minutes of racing, sees that white Mercedes lead here at Watkins Glen. Brilliant overtake there, a brilliant pace he is showing in these early stages of the race.
Yeah, really well done. And this is a driver, this is his first race with Apex Online Racing. He wasn't able to start the previous race at Spa, so yeah, to come out and already be putting, well, there you go, McCall putting in the fastest lap as well. It'll be really interesting to see how he holds on through Sector 1. Can he maintain this kind of... Oh, Jamie Nuttall going very wide there through Turn 1. Going to have to avoid doing that too many times. He'll end up getting himself a drive-through, and that is not what you want at all here. I think we can probably see just via the times, if you look at where Steinhauser is now, kind of a 47, he had a drive-through penalty, and you can see how far off the back of the pack he is. And I can't believe the way that McCall is driving away from Nuttall this early in the race. And it actually looks a little bit like Florian is bringing the battle back. He looks like after a bit of a slow sort of first couple of laps, he's really sort of getting into it. Nearly 10 minutes of the race done, and it looks like he's starting to warm those tyres up a bit better and go on the attack of Nuttall.
Yeah, absolutely. Those two Mercedes looking very racy at the front, as is Lipka. Further down, the number 1 Audi has already had significant contact with the wall, and he was trying to put some pressure onto Jay Fang up ahead as they went down towards bus stop chicane. The Audi, maybe not quite the rocket ship it was in previous versions of the BOP, but is still very quick. But it doesn't look like in this latter phase of the lap, doesn't quite have the pace. In actual fact, it's coming under a little bit of pressure from a Struch now, so Lipka suffering heavily with that damage. But yeah, Morgan McCall, 0.6 of a second, 0.7 of a second clear of Jamie Nuttall already. I'm not sure if it'll be a new fastest lap, but it is certainly... Oh, that's a big moment going wide there for Florian. He's pushing extremely hard to try to make up a position, but that's not going to do him any good, as Tim Peachman also looking very racy in that McLaren. We were wondering how it would fare, and bearing in mind this is effective. Oh, is he down the inside? Very late dive for the 494 car. He was quite aggressive, but Spartan is lost on the exit. A contact with Kuhneman, who tags him round, and disaster for the 494. It was a late lunge, and it did not pull off what he wanted whatsoever. Trying to rejoin, he's got to be careful about that, thinks better of it. But after a lot of aggression,
yeah, 3-point slot through there, wasn't it? that was really unfortunate. It was a case of he got a little bit wide on those curbs. As we said, the McLaren not great on the curbs, slightly over-rotated and just came across the nose of the... which car was he against? I do apologise.
It was Kuderman, the number 12, who in the process, he lost so much momentum on the exit of turn 1 that Mellis managed to sneak through and get himself up to what is actually effectively a podium position. Because with that penalty for Florian, that battle for P4 is the last spot on the podium. So, unfortunately, I think Kuderman really couldn't do anything about that. It was a late lunge that he had to react to, and then just on the exit, 494 got it all wrong, and then yeah, Kuderman just had nowhere to go. So disaster there for both drivers, but Kuderman taking a little bit of damage, but thankfully not coming out of it too awfully as yellow flag comes out for Peachman again. I'm not sure if he's had a further moment around the field, or see if we can get a different camera angle. We've got a face for the tree at the moment. It does look like he may have gone around again down towards turn 6. Yeah. I'm not sure what's happened to him, or if that car's just being very difficult to drive at the moment. But yeah, disaster for the man that sits P3 in the standing after finishing on the podium last time out. He was trying to make it another one, but yeah, potentially an overly aggressive move there from the 494, bringing his race to a very abrupt end after just 10 minutes.
Yeah, I had a quick look back on the replay, and I'm thinking it was the damage sustained to the back of the car as he was there, yes, going just after the bus stop, that long right-hander. The car looked very, very unsettled. So whether that's aero damage or is that possibly suspension damage, but something always coming into the pits. This is something that was mentioned yesterday, was that they are being quite strict on obeying the yellow lines coming into the pits. Whether that is going to be also in lower tiers as well as it was in tier 1, but I will say that Peachman looked like he took a slightly creative line into the pit there. So it'd be interesting to see if anything does come post-race, and if people are going to be watching that back. As we say, the only post-race stewarding goes on in the lower tiers. So it'd be interesting. It might be a case of if someone gains an advantage and you get reported for cutting that line.
Yeah, that could be a bit of a game changer, couldn't it? Also, just in the last couple of corners, Kuderman unfortunately losing another position, maybe struggling with that damage as Krzysztof Makowski has got past, and he might have the Aston Martin and Koroshavin hunting all over the gearbox of the Honda as well. Florian also got very, very close to Jamie Nuttall earlier on in that lap, but was unable to do anything. But that Honda does look like it may be running around a little bit wounded at the moment, is coming under increasing pressure. So not too far behind. We've also got a battle going on with Nicholas Hurt and Matt York that is getting pretty cozy between those drivers. But I also do just want to highlight someone that has made tremendous progress in its opening phase of the race. I said he'd be one to keep an eye on. Jordan Watson up into P13 in the Ferrari, started well outside the top 20, and now finds himself in a position where, potentially with Florian's penalty as well, which I think he'll still be within enough of a touching distance to benefit from, that will see him climb up the order another position. Seeing P12 as meanwhile someone else trying to make a position is Koroshavin, trying to go down the inside of Kuderman in towards the chicane, and the Aston Martin flies through there, and Kuderman, it just looks like he doesn't have the speed. Oh, that's a mistake in the background for Nicholas Hurt. Goes right across the grass on the exit of the chicane. Manages to keep it all under control and pointing in a straight line, but that continues to put himself under increasing pressure from the two Aston Martins. That's a big moment for Matt York, and that may lose him a position as a result. Now going to try and see if he can sneak through as he went very, very wide, caught the marbles and just went a little bit deep on the brakes in towards turn 6. And number 65 car drops a position in the process, and I'm sure Nicholas Hurt will be breathing a sigh of relief for the time being, because that opens up a car length or two for the McLaren.
A quick idea on Jordan Watson, to get an idea of how quick he is going. His last lap was a 1:45.192, and I have to go all the way up to P3 of Florian to find anyone that's quicker than him. So that is an idea of how much quicker he is going than the people around him. So he is really, really pushing forward. Actually, the person, Thomas Jack, just in front of him with a 1:45.207 is a similar pace, but these guys are nearly half a second faster than the guys in front at the moment. So they are really, really pushing forward, desperate to make up some time. And actually, it's only our top 3 that are into the 1:44s at this moment. So it's still very, very close. The grid hasn't split up much, which doesn't bode well for car number 47 and car number 6, obviously having to battle their way back after the incident earlier in the race. And that's the one thing when you're racing in such close tiered racing. Oh, car number 14, I've seen the yellow flag. What's going on there?
Fang, that's the Aston Martin. So what has happened to Jay Fang? He was in a battle, well that was with Lipka just behind the number 1 car. They were squabbling for position. What happens towards turn 1? So was it a little bit of a lunge? There's a Ferrari trying to make a move just ahead. I'm not sure who that was. That all looked fairly clean, but oh, it is Lipka. I think maybe makes a bit of contact. Oh no, he doesn't lose it all by himself. Oh, what an absolutely... what an unusual way to be, just a little bit similar actually to the moment that the 494 car of Peachman had on the exit of turn 1. I thought it was going to be contact with Lipka the way they were lining up, but he kind of got himself straddled over that exit curb, and that car just, if he's running it very, very low to the ground, may have just bottomed out, and the momentum of the weight transfer has just swung from side to side, and unfortunately for Jay Fang has speared him in towards the outside wall. So disaster for him. Meanwhile, that battle's still raging on actually, because Lipka has gained a couple of positions in all of that. As I thought, I think that's the recovering Tim Peachman trying to unlap himself, almost making contact with a Struch. But there's been a bit of swapping of positions between these cars that were around the area before. Ajacek also losing a position to Lipka, but yeah, very unfortunate and slightly unusual mistake for Jay Fang there, and I'm sure he'll be kicking himself after that one.
Yeah, I think what may be the case here is it's such a fast circuit, there's so many quick areas, and there's not that many aggressive curbs. People are probably running as lower ground clearance as possible, so the ride height's really low. And if they just get themselves in that slightly wide position, all 4 tyres on that exit curve at turn 1 or slightly hanging to the left, like you said, they're bottoming out the cars, it's a massive lack of grip, and it just unsettles the car, and they're going so quick already by that point. It is absolutely foot to the floor, they're eyeing up that next right-hander, and it just obviously is unsettling a few. But yeah, very interesting to see the...
Speaking of which, Matt York got himself unsettled over the bus stop chicane. He got it all wrong over that final apex. That allows the McLaren. Thomas Jackson, he got the inside. Watson makes a little bit of contact. Thankfully, everyone points in the same direction, although Thomas Jackson still over the grass just about manages to get the car back under control. I'm not sure whether or not Thomas Jack will be too happy about that one, but Watson does gain another position in all of that. I couldn't quite see whether or not if the gap just closes. Who's that's a yellow flag for? I think that's Lipka. Further down the order it is. What's happened to the number 1 car? Oh, that's Meerveld that was around. Oh my goodness. So Meerveld, I didn't quite expect it to be like that. So if you could do a little bit of replay hunting there for me, because Vince van Meerveld seemed to go around and Lipka trying to take evasive action, had to swing it all the way to the right-hand side of the track, and then when he tried to bring it back, caught the grass, and then lost it himself. So what on earth happened to Meerveld?
Going back and watching it now for you, a little bit of update on the Watson incident. It looked a bit more like a racing incident. It was just a case of, had his nose just up the inside and just got a little bit unlucky, really, and just caught the back end of the McLaren. It didn't look like anyone sort of tried to shut the door, or he didn't go deep. It was just 2 into 1 doesn't go, and obviously, luckily, no one had too big of an incident. So just watching back the Meerveld incident now. Oh, he loses it on... Oh, God, which corner is that? I can't even remember.
I think it's the exit of turn 6, if I remember correctly.
That does sound about right. I think it was, yeah, he just loses it himself. And then, yeah, Lipka, trying to go evasive from that, just end up completely stacking it. And they've swapped positions, so very, very strange to see that happening. And they're both in the pits now. So obviously took on a significant amount of damage. Let's see if I can just get some better angles of that, because that was very confusing.
Yeah, it did seem like a very odd incident when I switched back to it, because I saw the yellow flag out for the number 1 car of Lipka, and then found Vince van Meerveld's straddle across the circuit as well. So yeah, very unusual one. And we're seeing Watkins Glen. We talked about it being a very intense and difficult circuit for these drivers to try to negotiate, and we're less than 20 minutes into this race, and several mistakes for these Tier 2 guys who are very, very quick, very, very consistent usually, and able to race cleanly. And Watkins Glen just putting these guys under huge amounts of pressure. The concentration to try to follow through these fast corners. It's absolutely immense sometimes, and yeah, straight line speed here is so important. I think that's another reason for these low ride heights as well. They try to make their car as small as possible to the ground and reduce the drag on their car. In doing so, it does make it so skittish over the curves, particularly if you're in the likes of the McLaren or the Ferrari.
Right, still just trying to look over the over that and just trying to really work out what happened to car number what happened to Lipka to actually make him crash the way he did. So you see Meerveld go a little bit wide on the exit, gets himself unsettled. Oh, and it's just Lipka tries to avoid. He does manage to stay out the barrier and doesn't get hit by anyone else. Very, very lucky. People going left, right and centre who try and avoid hitting him, and that was very lucky for some other drivers there as well. Car number 44, who was just following these guys, sort of completely oblivious to what was going on in front, and he manages to duck to the left when everyone else went to the right. So very, very lucky to get away with that, I think.
Yeah, thankfully not too much harm done for some of these drivers. Just been keeping... Oh, that's a big moment for Jordan Watson in the background, and he does tag the wall, and all that progress he's been making through the field suddenly goes out the window. Let's scroll back on that on the replay. He's been trying to make his way past the Aston Martin of Matt York for the last few laps, and then through the exit of turn 6, just gets completely caught up over the curves. We'll see, going down in towards Chute Corner, goes slightly wide at the apex, brings it back though on the exit, and then just tags the smallest amount of grass and sees him go into the wall, side-on-side contact. So it won't be the most significant, but unfortunately in the Ferrari, any damage that you do get aerodynamically, same on the McLaren, is extremely severe and sensitive. So don't know if he'll come into the pits for an early pit stop, but he doesn't. So he will stay out for the time being. But Jordan Watson, the 147, after recovering so many positions from that unusual qualifying from him, he's unfortunately made a mistake there that is going to really hamper his ongoing progress through the field. But this Watkins Glen circuit continuing to show how much of a challenge it is for all of these drivers, and we've seen Nicholas Hurt, some of the other cars that we've been talking about being particularly skittish, of these McLarens and Ferraris, get really upset over those curbs going in towards the bus stop chicane there, and it does really unsettle the car, and they constantly end up straight lining. See Thomas Jack in the background giving me a perfect example of that, straight lining that kind of exit of the second apex. As meanwhile, further up actually, Jack Young in the BMW trying to go around the outside of Kuderman in towards turn 6, can't make it stick, but the BMW now starting to look particularly strong in this phase of the race. Maybe the Honda's tyres starting to drop away, as similar things going on at the front of the field, because McCall has really been able to pull away from the front. 3-second lead for the Mercedes. Jamie Nuttall not able to execute the same sort of pace he had last time out at Spa, but in these battles for the top 10 and just outside of it, is getting very, very feisty and interesting, as we'll probably be making our way towards the pit stop phase for some of these drivers, as the BMW has another look up the inside towards... whereabouts is out on the circuit. I can't quite work it out. I think it's turn 9, and the 155 car does manage to make his way through, although the Honda of Koopman trying to come back, but he can't commit down the inside in towards turn 10. He thought about it. That car wounded a little bit and does come into the pits. I said we might see a few drivers starting to make their way in, and Koopman, the number 12 car, who has got strong pace but is slightly running damage, as does Watson following in, are the first of our pitters. But very nice move there from Jack Young to find his way up in towards P7.
Really, really nice little bit of overtaking there. And I say, when you actually saw the position try to be taken back, he just held on and didn't brake too early, just committed to taking the corner, committed to his line, and just managed to sort of spook off the other car and sort of managed to hold on to it. Really, really well driven there by Jack Young. A brilliant little bit of driving. Oh, I think just behind him as well, Hurt and Lukanen. Oh, God, my brain just broke. Sorry about that. Lukanen. Those two getting together, and Matt York as well. There's a little sort of a quad of cars here.
And speaking of which, I did in the end come to the conclusion that last time there was a quadruplet of cars. I completely botched that word last time. I think I just saw a yellow flag for somebody. It was very, very brief at the tail end. I think that was between turn 6 and 7. I didn't quite catch anything, so I don't know if they retired to the pits very quickly or how significant that may have been, but But yeah, we're keeping an eye on that battle between Niklas Laukkanen and Matt York, who have been able to pull away a little bit on this lap, although that's wide for the McLaren up at the front as Laukkanen. Does he think about an opportunity towards turn 9? Try to repeat what Jack Young did moments ago? I don't think he can, but the McLaren has had phenomenal straight line speed. We were going on board the rear wing of that Visceral Esports McLaren, the 303, and even in the slipstream, the Aston Martins, which are no slouch in a straight line anymore with these BOP changes, were just not able to keep up with the pace of that car. As always, that's getting very tight. Oh, I thought we were going to have a repeat of what we had at Spa. Thankfully, the pit lane's a little bit wider, but both Matt York, Thomas Jack, and then also being followed in by Christian Deploy in the 95 Mercedes, all diving into the pit. So they're trying to get themselves out of this four-way tussle, leaving the 54 and the 303 to duel between themselves, see if they can get a bit of an undercut on those fresher tyres and jump up a couple of positions. So I have to see how that plays out, but we are entering that very interesting phase of the race where strategy starts to play in. But I do just want to take a moment to quickly say that Morgan McCall at the front of this pack, still lapping half a second a lap quicker than anybody else. He was not quite maintaining it in the 44s, but he is absolutely flying and doing a phenomenal job in his first race here in Tier 2. I think Tim has had to dart out of the comms box for a second, but I'm sure we'll be back with us very, very shortly, and we shall keep up with all of the action that we've got. Did anyone swap around in the pits and all of that? No, they all maintain position with where they were. Matt York, though, actually gaining quite a nice advantage over Thomas Jack, and then Christian Deploy staying behind the McLaren. And they will roam back out onto the circuit one more time, closing in on the halfway stage. Battle further down between Kieran Patterson and Jukka Terminen, who got very, very close to the wall there. And they've got Pidgic at the front of that pack in the Aston Martin, as Patterson tries to show a nose up towards the inside of turn 1, but unable to do anything for the time being. Although that's a wide mistake there for Terminen. That may give a little bit of a run to the Ferrari. See how they all fare on this back straight. Who is going to have the straight line speeds? The Ferrari has been looking, generally speaking, pretty quick, but that Lexus getting a very nice tow perhaps from the Aston Martin in front. And Kieran Patterson just unable to reel in the Lexus. So it's a little bit like what we saw with the Aston and the McLaren further up the field. And it just, yeah, these guys, if they haven't got enough straight line speed, it is so tricky to make an overtake around here at Watkins Glen, as more important pit stops occur with Jamie Nuttall, Florian Duakop coming into the pits as well. Obviously, I'll have that 20-second penalty on the top. I have to see where they all fare in the order once they all reshuffle around.
Yeah, that 20-second penalty, I'm going to keep a close eye on that car number 4 and see where it comes out in comparison to the rest of the field. The Lexus earlier on, we were saying earlier on, obviously you just said a moment ago that it's starting to look really good. It looked really good at the beginning of the race, but he started off really far back in the grid, and he was just sort of caught in the pack. But it did look like straight away he was very, very fast and tearing away. There we go, Florian just rolling away from his pit box now. So currently running in 8th, but he's in the pit, so sometimes it throws a bit of a wobbly. So we'll see where he ends up actually exiting the pit in relation to traffic.
Oh, sorry to cut you off there. Matty Laukkanen and Matt York going side by side. So this was the undercar I was talking about. Matt York has managed to, I think, gain a position potentially in all of this, although it's going to be another drag race down towards the bus stop chicane, trying to close in on McLaren. Niklas Hurt, he does send up the inside, does he? Oh, contact on the apex of Niklas Hurt and Matt York both off. McLaren pointing the wrong way. The 65 car does continue on, and Matty Laukkanen says thank you very much and takes 2 for the price of 1. But unfortunate contact there from Matt York, who on that undercut strategy did look like he was looking particularly racy, but that has all fallen apart very, very quickly amongst all of that. And yeah, disaster for those 2 cars. And yeah, sorry to cut you off there, Tim. Whereabouts has Florian emerged in all of that then?
He is now running in 17th place and already being hounded by Astrush in the number 88 Aston Martin. So it hasn't gone well for him. Obviously, as the pit stop and your tyre change is done, and then you have to sit for 20 seconds while your tyres just get colder and colder. So he is not just on the back foot for time-wise, he's also on the back foot. Just simply the fact that his tyres are colder than everyone else around him, significantly colder.
More contact! Oh no! Vince van Meerveld sent around by Niklas Hurt. The Audi just about manages to rejoin safely there. I'll have another look at that one. So Nicholas Hurt went wide up towards toe corner, and they got a poor exit as a result. Let's go on board with the Audi, and see got very, very shoved towards that inside line. Hard defence from the McLaren. Did manage to force his way through very, very late on the brakes, and there was clear of the McLaren, but then just got the smallest of tags on the exit. Unfortunately, I think the ACC contact model not doing him any favours in all of that, and that very small tap from the Visser Esports McLaren that was recovering himself. We get a very loud alarm sound.
Yes,
that's my building.
Okay. If you need to,
who should I leave you with? I'm going to put you with
maybe with the pole, the front battle, I would say. Maybe put us with the leader.
I've left you with Kuderman and Koroshavin for the time being, because they're fairly close on circuit have a back marker. But I'm going to see what's going on, I'm afraid.
That's fine. You may need to mute your microphone, as it's fairly loud coming through. And so everyone at home watching, we will have to do a little bit of radio play, just so we know what's going on, and we can kind of, we'll keep it going from there. So I'm afraid the cameras will be stuck on McCall, but we will do our very best to keep it covered just with radio play. So I do apologise about that. Sadly, real life issues, and clearly an alarm is going off there in John's building. So best that he gets out and finds out that there's nothing wrong than sit there and there possibly be issues. So we'll try and I'll do my best to keep everyone up to date. It looks like Thomas Jack is still having some decent battles. 0.5 behind Young, doing really good work there. You can see flying into this section. Be interesting to see how this Wins liveried McLaren does. Just having a look now. Has Mellis managed to hold on to his pole position? I don't think he has. I think we need to wait for the old screen to catch up. No, we haven't. So Mellis, who was running, was holding pole position for a little while. There we go. Everything sorted itself out. So it is now McCall on pole position. Nuttall still running in second, 1.5 seconds behind our leader. And oh, there we go. And we've got Mikowski running in third place. So that BMW has come absolutely out of nowhere, running in third place now, quite a long way off of Nuttall, but is having a really good little race. I'm trying to think where he qualified actually. I'll have a little look in a moment when John is back. I say again, if anyone's watching, apologies, it's a bit of a radio play at the moment. Oh, Kurashavin in 5th place is on the back of Mellis now. Mellis obviously still getting his tyres up to temperature. The Ferrari already a skittish car, even with full temp tyres. And there's a good flow of cars coming. We have car number 30, Kurashavin, who is fighting off Kuderman and Watson as well. And as we saw at the beginning, Watson made massive ground back up to P7 again after the pit stops. He did drop at one point down to P13 again, but he is pushing really hard to keep moving forwards. And this little pack, and yeah, I really do think that we might see Watson moving up into 6th place. But interesting to see if he can get into the top 5. Keeping an eye on the gaps at the front. McCall still really doing a good service, but he is about 2/10 off the pace compared to Nuttall at the moment. Mikowski again is just about half a second off the pace of Nuttall. So everyone's still pushing really hard. And actually, fastest lap of this session. Oh no, telling a lie. Koroshavin trying to go around the outside of Mellis up towards the bus stop. Can he get it done? Yes, he can. Really good move. Managed to get the overcut on him. Nipped back in front and managed to hold on to his apex. Really good bit of driving there. So now Mellis is going to be in the clutches of Kuderman, and Koroshavin, who is currently running in 4th place, is already starting to pull away. He's got 2.29 seconds between him and 3rd place. So let's see if he can close it down. And speaking of gaps that have closed down, Nuttall to McCall, now down to less than a second. So Nuttall really pushing hard. Like we said, he was lap-wise was going quicker, and now they are both appearing on the same screen at the same time. That gap tumbling down. Nuttall obviously feeling very strong in this latter half of the race, so maybe the Maybe these fresher tyres. He's only just really completed the pit stop. Those tyres will be fully up to working temp now. So here we go. Anyone that is unaware, just to let you know, John is okay. He is out of the building and he is okay, and he will update us in the YouTube chat to make sure he is all right. So that is why at the moment we are stuck on just McCall, our lead car, just while we're waiting for John to be able to get back into his building after a fire alarm's gone off. The joys of living in shared accommodation and tower blocks and flats and such. Oh, and apparently he's barefoot as well, so he's having a great time. But as we can see, that time between McCall and Nuttall still about less than a second, just under a second. Mellis again under attack from Kudeman. Koroshavin's managed to break away slightly. Just look at the way the Honda's closing in on the back of Mellis, though, and actually looks to the inside. Can't make them work the move work there. Watson looking for an opportunity as well, obviously trying to keep himself out of trouble. Had that slight incident here earlier in the race, so trying to keep his nose as clean as possible so he doesn't get in any further issues. McCall managing to open the gap back up to just over a second again now. Try to have a little look a bit further down the order. Who is that? We've got Jones, who is catching up with the back of... Oh, I do apologise if I mispronounced this name. Icek? Or Asiek? I do apologise. Car number 67. We'll go for Vulcan, as that's his first name. I do apologise to anyone upset by the mispronunciation. But Jones looking really, really good, closing in on the back of that car now. Could we see a move here down into turn 8? It is a possibility. He's in the right kind of area to make the move. Not quite. These two just holding onto the back of each other, though, staying as close as they dare. Ooh, Matt York again looks like he's trying to have a little bit of a tussle. So that's on the back of Salonen. 0.3 of a second between those guys, and really closes up into turn 1. This is Aston versus Aston. He goes a little bit wide out of turn 1, though, right over the exit curb. Doesn't get unsettled, though, as we've seen a couple of cars. Oh, and Watson, car number 147, into the pits again. So what has happened there? Oh, okay. It turns out McCall is fuel saving. They have apparently been fuel saving for 3 laps at the moment. That's Robert McCall. I'm presuming that is a brother or father or some sort of relation to Morgan McCall, but trying to fuel save, so they might be losing time a little bit. To be fair, though, their laps are still really good, so nothing to be worried about too much there, and still over a second back to Nuttall with just under 23 minutes of the race left. This is very strange not being able to change cameras. I'm watching everything going on my screen as I can flick through on my end. Oh, it's father. Okay, so this is a father and son racing team. I do have to ask, and let's see if he is listening. Robert McCall, are you the spotter this evening? Are you in the server spotting for your son? Look here, everyone sort of is continuing to battle on. Colagrosso looks like possibly closing in there on the back of Hurt. Ah, yes, there we go. Ron McCall is one of the spotters. So AOR testing out spotters this evening. Normally it is just me and John that are in the spectator seats and able to observe all the cars, but it's quite good. They're letting spotters in. Oh, Mellis. Hello. What's going on here? Mellis closing back up on Koroshavin. Under 0.3 of a second between them now. And he seems to have opened up the gap a little bit. He has to come through the bus stop. Can he do anything here? Into sector 2. Oh, God, Kudeman really closed up on him on the exit of the bus stop. Obviously just being able to hold it together in the Honda. Throws it in again. Coming up into turn 7. Let's get my track map up. That'll make my life a lot easier. There's me wondering why I can't actually think of all the corner names. And that's because I'm looking at the wrong thing. So here we are, coming down towards turn 8. Looks like they've opened up a fair bit. The gap between McCall and Nuttall has opened up slightly more, but Nuttall has just put in the fastest lap of the session. Obviously, the fastest laps get reset after the pit stop, so still absolutely nothing between them realistically, but that is a new fastest lap put in, a 1:43.812. Oh, McCall puts in a 1:43.795. So obviously the fuel saving going out the window as he is aware that Nuttall is coming after him. We might see a change of position before the end of the race. 20 minutes left to go. It's going to be a case of, can Nuttall close the gap before his tyres start to go away from him, and how long can McCall's tyres last? I want to say that McCall pitted after Nuttall, but YouTube chat, I'm sure you will tell me I'm completely wrong in saying that, and do feel free to let me know if I'm wrong. Here we go, coming down again towards turn 6 and 7. Keep an eye on the time. Salonen looks like he's closing in. So I'm going to have a quick see how he is getting on. Oh, there we go. So this is Salonen versus Dupuy. Car number 11 versus car 95. If you are wanting slightly more in-depth timing, do feel free to check out the link in the description, which will take you to our pit link, which is a really, really good way of seeing all the live timing, absolutely up to date. Gives you an idea of what me and John can see when we're doing commentary. Some slightly more up to date timing screens with live timing on it. Really, really good tool. So yeah, check that out. Link is there if you're trying to keep an eye on more of the grid as well as not just the lead battle. And speaking of the lead battle, McCall to Nuttall now 1.5 seconds. So has Nuttall missed his opportunity to catch the back of McCall? We had heard he was fuel saving, but I mean, if he's fuel saving and still pulling away to nearly 1.8 seconds ahead, if that is fuel saving pace, then my goodness, he is looking strong today. Mellis again closing up within 0.3 of a second to Kurashavin. So coming into sector 1 now, this is where we're probably going to see the Aston looking a little bit stronger as they're heading through turn 3 and 4 onto the back straight. Is the Ferrari close enough to be in the tow? Quite possible. Not quite, actually. He's just not being able to catch up with the back of Kurashavin as they go into the bus stop. Both of them taking it really well. Again, Kuderman really, really closing in on the back of him. It's just such a fast car on that back straight. It's unbelievably quick. Trying to work out, obviously we saw earlier on that Jordan Watson went back into the pit, and it appears that Jordan Watson has actually left the server, so not sure what happened there. After a brilliant recovery drive, he has now left the server. Oh, possible change of position here. Kurashavin really under attack from Mellis, coming through turn 7 there, down towards turn 8, the heel. Are we going to see anything? No, not quite, but through the turns, that Ferrari really, really looking strong. Not having to defend from Kuderman quite yet. Again, that lead gap now just shy of 2 seconds, 1.944 between those guys. This definitely seems to be the battle to keep an eye on. Mellis really hunting down the back of Kurashavin. So this is the battle for 4th place. And all the while these guys are squabbling, that's doing massive favours for car number 723, our 3rd place runner in that BMW, Makowski. Brilliant race from him. So he came out of nowhere. He's 5 seconds ahead of 4th place while these guys continue to squabble. So it's going to make a huge advantage for him. Looks like Lipka as well now starting to have some racy moments. We'll cut back on. Again, he is round Astrush, that car number 88, versus the Audi of number 1. It's a brave choice to go for number 1, isn't it? Usually for the championship winner claims that racing number. Definitely paints a big target on your back having it, even if it is not for being the reigning champion. Doing really nicely there. Actually, where did Lipka come last time round? I should be able to see that in my fact sheet. Lipka. How did you get on last time? So last season in the Endurance Championship, his team came 26th overall. So he is a very good racer, used to doing these slightly longer stints. So obviously 1 hour in a sprint series is absolute child's play for him. And there we go, McCall has finally opened it up to the bang on 2-second lead. He's actually coming towards the end of the lap now, so let's see what he can do when he crosses the line. Let's see what the gap looks like. So it was 2 seconds at the end of this lap. That was lap 24. And the gap has come down by 1/10 of a second, but still not a very large amount. And Nuttall really struggling. Oh, Carnaby 13. I see a yellow flag there.
That's Thomas Jack, and I've returned.
He has returned.
It was yes, someone brilliantly fired deodorant at the alarm in their room, and these are the consequences. But thankfully, no actual damage done. I hope that there was some action going on there that you were able to entertain everyone with. I am so sorry about all of that. Oh, and just looking on the replay, yeah, big mistake from Thomas Jack coming out of turn 9. Got wide on the exit and then just spun into a wall, and that's heavy damage on the front of that car. But yeah, looking further up, it looks like positions have been roughly maintained. I saw that Kuderman had lost a couple, but yeah, 15 minutes racing, or just under 15 minutes of racing left. Hopefully we can catch it a bit more detail. But thank you, Tim, for covering that, and I hope that hasn't detracted from the action too much, the lack of camera work on my side, so I do apologise everybody, but yeah, huge thanks and applause must go to Tim in all of that for covering that, so thank you, buddy.
Oh, I do love a bit of radio play. It is good fun. Yeah, luckily nothing too major missed, but plenty of action, and I do apologise, I went into full horse racing commentary mode where I just absolutely babbled constantly, so everyone at home is probably deaf by this point, so I apologise.
Well, it's better that they were deaf from that commentary than the alarm that I think I rather unfortunately subjected them to. I was just having a look at the battle between Koroshavin and Alessio Mellis, which will get into a three-way tussle very, very shortly, with Kuderman catching up on all of this. The Aston Martin number 30 car doing a good job. God, they were so close to the exit wall from the final corner there, but this is getting very spicy for the positions just outside the podium. I'm sure they would hope that they were a bit further up the order, but yeah, these guys really starting to battle on. Looks like we're having some good battles all the way throughout this race, even if we haven't maybe been able to capture the best of them at times.
Someone can't speak. There we go. Someone to mention is car number 723, now running in 3rd place, started in 7th place. I don't really feel like we've said that much about Makowski, but he is just made his way to the front, kept it really clean, he's got himself a nice gap. I think he's definitely just controlling his gap perfectly now, running 1:44.6 is at the moment, but just doing a brilliant bit of driving, and you know, sort of a real testament to keeping your nose clean and just gaining those positions. Something that did happen when you were gone is we have lost oh god, my brain is just completely broken. I need to scroll down to actually read the name. I do apologise. We've lost Jordan Watson.
Oh dear, what happened to the 147 car?
I don't actually know. I didn't see a yellow flag. I saw no incident. He actually he went back to the pits, or appeared in the pits, but I'm not entirely sure what happened there. No one in the chat said anything, so I think it may have been a case that possibly he maybe just retired for whatever reason. These things do happen. Real-life incidents come around, not just for us commentators, but actually as well. What you don't know is quite often, nearly every time I commentate, I do normally have to send John a quick message saying, I'll be right back. The joys of being a father. Sometimes you have to run away and just deal with your child. You know, just from time to time, you have to just go, okay, fine, I'll deal with my child.
It's yes, unfortunately, yeah, real life responsibilities can get in the way of some fantastic virtual racing action. But yeah, thankfully most of the time we're able to juggle it. I certainly hope that Jordan Watson didn't happen to also be in this building. He was subjected to a fire alarm. I don't know if it's a related issue there, but
it was a different time.
So I think safe on that front. But yeah, just big shame for the 147. He'd had such a good run through the field, went a little bit wonky after that mistake coming out of turn 6, but yeah, he was certainly in a good position still, as is Antti trying to make a position up on Christian Ploy in the Mercedes. Gets it all wrong, though, through that run. And now we've got a bit of a three-way tussle outside of the top 10 because Florian Duakop and Matt York have been battling for the last couple of laps. And Matt York feeling the pressure, almost having to switch back across there. The Unicorns love Mercedes trying to find a move down the inside. Wasn't able to do it. Good grunt in that Mercedes, though, does launch out the inside, does he? Going into the next corner, hooked all the way up over the apex. The 65 car not giving him much room, and he spins out the wheels on the exit there, just straddled ever so slightly across that inside curb. Just could not get the power down, and the Aston Martin lives to fight another day. But someone else that might actually come under a bit of pressure in a moment is Thomas Jack, wounded in that McLaren. And he has a Lipka and a Struch and a Colagrosso and all of that as well, coming very close to the back of him. And that car running particularly wounded at the moment, so that could get rather interesting as well. Although I do just want to check in ahead because I don't know, we may see a move coming up shortly for P4. Nellis has been putting all sorts of pressure onto the Aston Martin of Chamonix's last few laps. I think these two are the closest on circuit potentially. The Aston Martin, an absolute bullet in a straight line at the moment. It just hasn't allowed the Italian to make his way past.
Actually surprised that Kuderman has dropped back. He was really on the back of Mellis, especially after the bus stop. He was on the back of him every single time. So Kuderman has dropped back and is under attack as well now from Luukkonen. Actually, this might also be something to keep an eye on. I'll do my best to keep an eye on it as well.
Yeah, I think there was some shuffling further down the order as well. Lipka's managed to get past Thomas Jack, who may be about to lose a couple more positions as Struch now diving towards the inside. Colagrosso trying to see if he can follow through as well. Has it all fair. The Aston Martin does get through. Colagrosso, I think, will have to wait for another opportunity. But you can see the front of that rather reworked and not in a positive way. McLaren is dropping positions like flies at the moment.
I think we're going to see a change of position here for 6th place. Kuderman under attack. Car number 54 of Luukkonen. Yeah, he goes around the outside at turn 8. Can he hold it out there? I'm not sure he can.
Oh, he's still alongside though. That'll be the inside.
Oh, just gives way, I think, to the Honda. The Honda just that. Oh no! Exit at the corner. There we go. Car number 54. I thought we were going to see him hold on to the inside line, but obviously not able to get the power down in the same way as Kuderman's Honda. We saw it last night, the Honda being really good on acceleration out of the turns, and it just slightly outdid the Aston Martin. So coming back into Sector 1 again, be interesting to see if that gap closes
got Mellis and Koroshavin going side by side towards turn 1, so the Ferrari has been desperately trying to put the number 30 car under pressure for the last few laps. Wasn't able to get the job done there, but yeah, you're absolutely right. The Aston Martin, good straight line speed, but does lack a little bit in terms of acceleration. So I think losing out in that regard to the Honda. But checking further down this four-way train for 9th position, excuse me, getting very, very busy as the Mercedes deploy is going to get absolutely swarmed by Aston Martins on the run down towards bus stop chicane. But that Mercedes, good straight line speed to fight back. But is Matt York trying to sneak up the inside of Salonen, who takes it to the curb and contact again with Matt York, who speared off into the wall. Florian Duakop takes the pair of them, and another major impact, or another incident for Matt York at the bus stop chicane, but this time much more severe to that car and major damage to the front of that 65 Aston Martin, who's going to rejoin just in front of Colagrosso. Oh my goodness, they've got very, very close between those two. A Struch to the outside. Colagrosso got absolutely terrified and nowhere to go and all that, and backed out, but did go down the inside in the end. Oh my goodness, that was a very, very tight series of events there, but the 65 car coming off by far the worst in all of that.
While that was going on, Luukkonen managed to get the move done into the entrance to the bus stop. So Luukkonen now in 6th place, Kuderman down to 7th. I've seen a couple of the Aston Martins do that. They're on the left-hand side on that back straight. They're managing to outbrake whoever they're up against and swing all the way across and take the apex on that right-hander into the bus stop. So obviously on the brakes going into that bus stop. The Aston Martin's looking very, very strong, and he is already starting to pull away now from Luukkonen, half a second as they cross the line, and they were just, well, one lap ago. It was the other way round. So can Jack Young in the 155 BMW catch up with Kuhnemann? Is this a case of, as we saw last night, the Honda starting to fall apart towards the end of the race?
Does seem to struggle in these latter stages, doesn't it? As Yorkie in the number 65 continuing to lose position. I think it's going to drop one to Mr. Jones in just a second. We've got Colagrosso putting a Struth under all sorts of pressure. Had to get on the brakes there and flashing the lights. Really not happy with that one. That'll compromise his run as Nicholas Hurt now trying to make a move on Thomas Jack. There's another one of our cars running very wounded at the end of this race, and that'll be an easy move for the Visceral Esports McLaren. So a lot of drivers still shuffling around. Further up, we've got Florian Duakop trying to bounce back after that 20-second penalty. He obviously benefited in that incident between Laukkonen and... no, sorry, it wasn't Laukkonen. It was Salonen and Matt York. Gained 2 positions, all of that. See if he can find another position, get his way up into P9 as we've got 2 cars side by side towards bus stop chicane, maybe even 3 as Turbin and Pitchick and Steinhauser all go side by side towards bus stop chicane. It's Steinhauser that comes on top for the time being. Turbin goes very wide on the exit, and the gaps suddenly grow 3 times the size they were a second ago, but that was getting very, very tight on the run towards bus stop. There's the yellow flag for Patterson down the background. What happened to him? All big impacts on the exit of the bus stop chicane there. Got stuck over that final curb, and that sent the Ferrari straight into the wall. So a disappointing end to his race, as Mellis, I think, once again putting pressure onto Koroshavin for P4. But again, the Aston Martin just has enough grunt on the long stretches of this circuit. As he flashes the lights there, Koroshavin, I'm not sure. Well, Mellis certainly can't see that. He's in the other direction. But yeah, Koroshavin maybe not too happy about what that was going on down towards turn 1. It looked like it was generally clean, but Aston Martin putting up a hell of a fight to stop the number 15 from moving up into that P4 spot. But yeah, a few battles still raging on in these final stages of the race.
You're going to be really interested to see what happens points-wise, as last time round, obviously our top drivers were Jamie Nuttall, Jordan Watson and Tim Peachman. And Jordan Watson and Peachman are, as far as I'm aware, they are both out of the race at this point. Yeah, Peachman and Watson both showing as pit and unselectable, so they have retired from the race. So it's going to be interesting to see. Makowski, I think, is going to probably rocket up into 2nd place overall. Jamie Nuttall, if he can maintain his 2nd place here, puts himself in pretty good stead to maintain leader overall. But I would say points-wise, obviously we're going to see McCall go firing up, currently running in 45th in the after not starting this time last week. Apologies. So it'd be really interesting to see how it all goes for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jamie Nuttall, he may not be able to come away with the victory today, but certainly with the races that he's put together for the opening couple of rounds, he is looking in fine form to surge up to the... Well, he's already at the top of the standings for his championship, obviously, after that race win at the season opener, but that is going to put him in such a commanding position, as meanwhile, Mellis having another go, and this is the closest he's been for a long time, because he's gained in the opening acceleration up through the hill section. How's he fare on the run down towards the bus stop chicane? The Aston Martin just has so much straight line speed, and there is nothing that Ferrari can do, and I think this section is somewhere that the Aston Martin really does shine. It's good under brakes, it's good in straight line speed, and it's able to take those curbs in a bit of a more comfortable way than the number 15 Ferrari. And Summer Story actually really hugs the apex of turn 5, far more than the Ferrari, so Mellis still unable to make his way past us. Meanwhile, Florian trying to dive up towards the inside, almost managed to sell it and pull off that Daniel Ricciardo switchback. In actual fact, it sent Christian Deploy wide on the exit, compromise his line on the way up towards turn 7. The Unicorns of Love, Mercedes trying to see if he can get up towards P9, sets himself up a very nice exit out of the turn 7 corner. Looks like out of sequence there, and trying to go side by side now down towards heel. Can he go all the way around the outside? Very, very late on the brakes. It's going to be tricky though to hang around the outside of the marbles, and he's well off the circuit there. I'm not sure. Oh, that's going to get tricky if he does make a move. I'm sure that Christian will have something to say about that, but the number 4 car does manage to muscle his way past and get up in towards P9, but I'm sure Christian will argue there that he took advantage of being well off the circuit. I think he had room on the exit of that corner as well to stay in within limits, so I'm not sure if the number 4 car will receive another penalty going into the next race, or post-race penalties for this one. But still, side-by-side action with those two. I did also hear the cue for the final lap of this race, which I'm sure Morgan McCall may be relieved to hear, because he's only got just over a second on that last lap between himself and Jamie Nuttall, as that gap has started to close down again. But the Mercedes driver, for the time being at least, does seem to have done enough to take that victory.
Yeah, it's the final lap. If you can just hold it together for it's essentially for another few turns, isn't it? He's just got to hold it together. But yeah, that gap seems to have really, really come down.
Oh, sorry to cut you off. Big moment for Christian Deploy, trying to go around the outside of Florian. It's all gone wrong, and he loses 2 positions in the process. I'm not sure he needed to do that if post-race penalties do end up applying. But yeah, not working out for the number 95 car there. Sorry to cut you off there, Tim.
No, absolutely fine, mate. Got to keep an eye on what is going on all across the field.
Yeah, and speaking of which, I'm aware that our leaders are coming towards the line, just seeing if Mellis can make a move. I don't think it will happen yet, but then honours do go to this man, the 540 car of Morgan McCall takes the win here at Watkins Glen. Brilliant drive from him, put under pressure all the way to the end from last week's winner and firm championship leader Jamie Nuttall takes P2. Krzysztof Makowski, good round from him to get a podium finish. I'm sure he'll be pleased with that. We wondered what he'd be able to do in that BMW, and his racecraft has paid off.
Nearly had to cut you off there. Mellis tried to go up the inside in the final turn, backed out of it at just the right moment, and is holding on to... oh my goodness, holds on to 5th place. Koroshavin was having none of it and stuck to his line, but I really thought we were going to see a last turn move there.
Yeah, I mean, Mellis absolutely threw everything he had at the Aston Martin. Those drivers have been battling really hard for so long, and it was a perfect example to show the differences between these cars and how they perform around this circuit. You know, you've got even the likes of the Lexus. You know, it was good in a straight line, good at the curbs, but we know it eats into its tyres, and we know it's just a little bit of a brick in the slow speed corners anyway. So, oh, that's a bit of a sideways moment for Mr. Jones into the wall as he comes towards the line. We do have a little bit of a battle at the tail end of the grid still going on between Soldatov, Jay Fang, and I think that is Recovery and Giacomelli. This 3-way fight is for position, but I'm not sure if anything's going to happen in the closing stages. But my goodness, what a race that we had there. Unfortunately missing out on a chunk of the action, and once again I do apologise for that. There was unfortunately nothing I could do there, but you know, still so much action, so many battles that we caught through all of that. Watkins Glen doing everything that we expected it to do, playing host to an exceptionally exciting round of racing, as Solostov absolutely sends himself into the barrier at bullet-like speed. Maybe perhaps not in celebration, but certainly in some sort of resolution from that race. And I think Matt York is our last car to head towards the line. Heavily battered and bruised is the 65 Aston Martin after that heavy contact, and clearly not the round that he would have wanted.
Well, he actually pitted on the previous lap, so this is his out lap from the pit. So for whatever reason, obviously had damage. So strangely enough, he was still in the pit when the leaders crossed the line. So he's now, I think he's just having a bit of a drifting session, probably trying to blow off some steam after a bit of a what can only be probably described as frustrating race for him. So yeah, this is his in lap. So he has got to make the line eventually. If he wants to get a position. I doubt he'll want to retire to the pit.
So, yeah, he's causing a little bit of havoc for those finishing their lap.
Yeah, so he's still actually got to cross the line. Everyone else is going into the pits or is just done now, and they can just retire to the pits.
Yeah, because I'm not sure if it'll actually be classified if he doesn't hit the timing line or in the finish line in time. It does look like he's going to make it, perhaps. as yeah, celebrating something potentially, maybe for the most flamboyant finish of any of our drivers. But yeah, he does cross the line in the end, so he will be classified in the order. But yeah, clearly not the day that Aston Martin would have wanted.
No, bit of a shame. Say normally Matt York does tend to keep his nose fairly clean. Exciting driver, but a very respectful driver. Not to say that this evening he hasn't been, but it's just, I think for a lot of people, things just didn't quite go the way they thought it would. But for someone that's done absolutely fantastically is McCall. What an absolutely fantastic race by him. We saw him do really well in qualifying. Obviously, he qualified in 3rd place. He immediately came out the gates charging like a bull and manages to break past. And so, yeah, there he is. He's moved his way forward significantly. We have got someone in the... who we got? Yep, Scott.
It's a P3 man. That's Krzysztof McCoskey, I do believe. We have a Greco. So yeah, we'll bring him in for an interview. But yeah, just quickly rounding off that point, as you were saying, Morgan McCall absolutely stellar in round 2. But we'll bring in this man, Krzysztof McCoskey, finishing in P3 in this race. Krzysztof, can you hear us all right?
Yeah, of course. Everything is fine.
Fantastic, and congratulations for making it into that P3 position. Perhaps a little bit of a quiet race for you, I think, at times, but a really good, solid result in the BMW, which we know maybe hasn't been lending itself to tracks as much as it has done in previous BOPs. And yeah, you showed brilliant race pace and consistency last time out. Spa didn't quite come together, maybe in the way that you hoped at the tail end of that, but phenomenal job today at Watkins Glen. So how are you feeling after that one?
First of all, thank you. That was like, I'm really happy. First of all, of course, like the BMW is not the fastest car over there, and well, like the biggest problem was the tires. Like I was like, and also the car is a sitting duck on the straights. Compared to, for example, Aston Martin, I was losing like 3/10 to the driver behind, for example. Like I was seeing on the Delta. So like. I just wanted to drive as fast as possible in a third and the middle sector just to gain everything, but then in a second stint everyone started to fight and I just ran away, and I was very happy to actually be alone and just drive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, I think it was slightly in contrast to sort of the race that you had at Spa, where you really had to kind of fight your way through a few battles to kind of get where you were, and came away with still a strong P6 finish at Spa, and that in conjunction with this podium spot, because you have the likes of Watson, Peachman, Lipka, Roda, all of those ahead of you, other than Jamie Nuttall at the top of the standings, really did not have a very strong round today. So I can't be certain, but I think that there's a good chance that you may have actually moved into P2 in this championship. I say that very provisionally with no calculations to back it, but I feel semi-confident in saying that. And as you say, you know, the M4 hasn't been as competitive as it was. Maybe certain circuits coming up on the calendar may suit it better, but yeah, really a really strong result for that. And thinking about future circuits, Paul Ricard next time out. Any thoughts or feelings how maybe the M4 may end up being there?
I don't know. Like that's actually my second time in the M4. I only did one community league with Jardier in his league. I haven't driven there. So I don't know how is the BMW, but well, like I will just try to be as fast as possible there, as always, you know. Like I'm really happy that I'm like it's still 4 races to go, right? So everything can happen, but obviously my goal is to go back to split 1.
Yeah, I was about to say, obviously this is your first season for a very long time outside of Tier 1. As we said earlier on, there's a massive amount of fresh blood have come in and sort of shaken all the tiers up a fair bit. There's lots of familiar faces missing this season from all the tiers where they've kind of been shuffled about. So, but how have you found the racing in Tier 2 compared to Tier 1? Is it as competitive?
It's exactly the same. Exactly the same. There is like... obviously the pace is a little bit slower comparing to the esports guys, but like racing itself is exactly the same, like same competitiveness, same racecraft. So overall, mega good.
Fantastic. It's always good to hear from someone that's had a tier 1 experience, obviously, and such sort of consistent tier 1 experience to come join us in tier 2 and still really be enjoying it. It does show that it's not just tier 1 that can put on a good show. Us tier 2 guys can really put on a fantastic show as well. I am going to second the statement that I believe you are now in second place in the championship. That's going off the fact that Jordan Watson and Peachman didn't finish whatsoever. And then looking at the race, who was it? Lipka and Rhoda were in front of you in the championship. And it's Rhoda came in. Why is this not working? Thank you very much. Rhoda came in 19th place and Lipka came in 12th. So almost certainly in second place in the championship now. So great way to finish this week's racing for you. So
Still 4 races to go. Still 4 races to go. Everything happened.
oh yeah. There's a long way to go yet, but it's always good to points all the way through the championship are good. Points mean prizes, as they say.
And we've seen it time and time again, haven't we? The consistency throughout a season ends up being quite often the significant factor in things. So getting a good couple of results in these opening rounds is so important. So yeah, should be very pleased with that. And also thank you for joining us for an interview, Christoph.
No problem.
And it's great to have voices coming through here. That not sure if we'll pick up any more tonight. So yeah, thank you for joining us in the box. Congratulations on the podium this evening, and best of luck next time out at Paul Ricard.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Yeah, so great there to have one of our podium finishers in. I'm not sure if we'll get any more. Obviously, we had Jamie Nuttall, our race winner, last week come in. I would have been really interested if he sneaks his way into the comms box for an interview, because yeah, clearly he got another pole position. He's still 2 for 2 on the qualifying front, but that race pace that McCall had, and he was strong from the outset, wasn't he? Those both himself and Florian, those Mercedes, were really hounding that Honda in the early stages, and as soon as McCall got past, he fled away. I did see maybe a couple of mentions in the chat of some fuel saving at times. So that's even more impressive as well. If Morgan was trying to tackle that kind of issue and he was maintaining the gap over Nuttall to whatever he needed it to be to bring home the victory, and we know how fast Jamie Nuttall is, that's exceptionally impressive and a real statement in the second round. And as Krzysztof Makowski has just said, there are plenty more rounds to go, and if McCall can put in consistent performances like that through a season, Jamie Nuttall may have a little bit of a tough time on his hands for the championship.
Almost certainly. Actually, it turns out it's his father who was his spotter this evening. As I said earlier on, that we were allowing spotters in for, I think it's the first time really, allowing spotters to come in and keep an eye on the race. And so yeah, his dad actually was his spotter, so he was the one letting us know that they were fuel saving. So, I mean, a pretty trusted source, I think.
Absolutely, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure, no doubt that clearly has his son's best interest there in bringing that result home. And yeah, and also great for sim racing enabling those sorts of activities. It's fantastic. It really is something for everyone to get involved in. We're seeing more of these kind of family involvements in the endurance racing. We also quite often get Prenter, who's a tier 1 driver. His dad features in the chat as well. I've seen Trevor Wenham and Jamie Wenham, I believe, is his father. We're seeing more of that coming into sim racing, which is lovely to see on that front. But yeah, Morgan doing an absolutely astonishing job to convert that P3 spot into his first victory of the season. And also we said we were going to make it a regular segment week from week. Was Tim's top pick. And who is your money on, or not so much your money on, but so who's your choice for today? Because there's a few standouts, but Tim, obviously the final decision goes to you.
I mean, it's been a real odd one. I mean, I was originally going to say that I think I was going to give it to Watson because of his amazing recovery drive, but obviously retired before the end for unknown reasons to us at the moment. So you know what? I think I'm actually this evening I'm going to give it to Mikowski, our third place driver. Sorry, third place driver, simply because he kept it clean. It was just a really good, smooth, professional race. No dramas. I mean, feel free, at some point someone will probably tell me that somebody made up X amount of billions of positions. But he just seemed to keep his nose clean, and sometimes that is the best way. It can, not necessarily just to be the most entertaining man on the track. It is getting the job done and getting the job done consistently. So a 6th place, a 3rd place. It's a great effort. So yeah, he's going to get my driver of the day this time round.
Yeah, I think that's a fair enough choice, and that's perhaps the experience of being in Tier 1 for so many seasons that ends up trickling on down, and yeah, he finds himself in a slightly unusual position for what Christoph is used to, but as he said, the racing is all the same, the competitiveness is the same, so his approach and experience of racecraft that he's built up through Tier 1, he applies that to the race, and in Tier 2, where on occasion drivers maybe get caught up in incidents and contacts and things, and not judging situations in the way that they would best like to, that's where that sort of driving ends up really benefiting. And yeah, so a solid choice there for the 723 car. And yeah, I don't think we'll have any more interviews, so we'll go through a bit of a quick final finishing order for the race. So Morgan McCall takes the victory here at round 2 for Watkins Glen. Brilliant effort by him in the 540 Mercedes. Jamie Nuttall makes it back-to-back podium finishes, and the only driver to finish on the podium in the opening 2 rounds. Not quite able to make it 2 wins though, but still very strong for the championship. Christoph Mikowski, who we had in the comms box at the end there, finishing on the podium in P3. Good drive from him. Koroshavin just about managed to hold off Melis at the end there to take P4, with the Italian taking P5 just behind. Laukkanen benefiting from some incidents around him during that race to get up to P6. Kuhnemann, slightly eventful day for him. The Honda maybe not quite able to convert the raw pace he had in qualifying into quite the result that he would have wanted, and he was under pressure from Jack Young at the end in another one of the BMWs, and yeah, it was a good effort there from both our BMWs to get strong results in the top 10. Not easy in such a competitive grid. Then we have Florian Duerkop, who obviously had that 20-second penalty, had not as much of an eventful race, but did have a couple of things. I'm not sure whether that incident with Christian Deploy in the latter stages, whether there'll be any investigation over that, because it did sort of look like he maybe gained an advantage by going off the track, so we'll have to see what happens there. But better race, I would say, and really strong pace shown from Florian, so there are positives for him to take away from today. Salonen rounding out top 10. Now have Christian Deploy, Patrick Lipka, Astruch, Christian Colagrosso, Nicholas Hurt, Thomas Jack, Volkin Eitchek, Mr. Jones, Lucas Roder, and Vince van Meerveld seeing us to the end of the top 20. Steinhauser, Pitchick, Terminant, Kieran Patton, Solstov, Jay Fang, and Matt York, and Giacomelli being our final lot then. And then we had a few DNS of the likes of Watson and some other notable names. Unfortunately, I can't quite remember, perhaps due to me being slightly away from the screen during that stream. And once again, I do want to say, as a final comment, huge thanks and appreciation should go to Tim there for trying to carry that during that period. Unfortunate fire alarm incident at my end. Thankfully, no harm done for anybody. But yeah, amazing work there by you. And I think I left it on a battle that was going on for a little bit. But yes, unfortunately, I think that faded after a while. But yes, amazing radio show stuff from you as ever, Tim. So all the thanks to you on that front. And yeah, we will be back again for Paul Ricard in a week from now. We can join us for the Tier 2 action at 7:30 British time next week and see what all of these guys get up to once again. Who will be on top of Paul Ricard? Christoph Mikowski isn't confident how his car will fare. We're not too sure about the likes of the Mercedes and Jamie Nuttall in the Honda. Will he make it 3 podiums in a row, or maybe even a second win? We'll have to see how they all fare there. And as always, if you want to get involved in this racing yourself, then do head over to apexonline.racing and start to see all the latest and greatest championships that AOR are hosting. and participate in the likes of this series, the Endurance, you name it, and there's also plenty of other championships on other platforms and sim titles as well. And if you also just want to keep up with the community and be part of a bunch of people that love sim racing and motorsport as much of all of us do, then do consider joining the Discord server as well. So it's been another week of fantastic action-packed field racing here at Watkins Glen. And any final words from you, Tim, after that brilliant race?
What can I even say? It's been an amazing week. The standings have just come in and can confirm championship top 5. Jamie Nuttall on pole position at the moment. Mikowski in second place. Lipka third. Morgan McCall jumped straight into fourth place. And Jordan Watson somehow still holding on to fourth place overall in the championship. Apart from that, I think you put it absolutely perfectly, John. Again, thank goodness that you survived and you came back. Yeah, it's been a really good one again. I think everyone's enjoyed it. So, yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, brilliant stuff as always. So, yeah, we'll see as many of you as possible then next week for some more brilliant action in Tier 2. And, of course, the Tier 1 guys will be going at it again on Monday at 7:30 British time, where Rage and Jamie will be bringing you the action from that. So, look forward to seeing as many of you next week to enjoy more fantastic action here in the AOR GT3 series. But until then, it is goodbye.
Good night.